minds. Everybody's present, which is awesome. So this will be a good conversation. The large batch summary of what we're going to talk about today is old technology and facades of newness. What that means, stick around, you'll find out. Quick pitch before we jump into the conversation. We are doing a newsletter called Pathways. Please go sign up for that so you can get additional information from us or deeper dives into topics or interesting ideas that we find along the way. That'll be one of the primary ways for you to interact with us and get ideas to us for us to discuss or look into or whatever you want to say, family recipes, whatever. So that pitch being done, Alex, you had the idea. Start us off.
Sure. Yeah. Just as a common topic going around with the AI circles right now, I'm talking about agentic AI or AI agents.
Mm,
And also, OpenAI just had a release that basically is able to incorporate OpenAI's ChatGPT into other products like Google Calendar, other things like that, Gmail.
mhm.
And a few of us have also been playing around with some other kind of connection-based kind of tools like Zapier, which is a common one that everyone probably has heard of, but N8N, make.com is the other one. Those kind of ones, they try to connect together different pieces of software and different platforms, and then usually there's some kind of trigger, this thing does this. So if someone fills out a form on your website, that goes into a Google Doc and then or a Google Sheet, and there's a
Mhm.
reply to that from Eloqua. HubSpot has this, Salesforce has this, Eloqua itself actually just has it pre-built in. It's not new tech.
Right.
So there's this line between what we have today, which is chatbots, basically, what we have kind of coming that's old tech gone new, which is if this, then that, or workflows, or apps, or software, or automated triggers, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
which is basically just different connection points that are automated. And then there's this next giant leap on the other side of the Grand Canyon that suddenly is agentic AI and AGI. And I'm struggling with how do we get from where we are today, what we're talking about, and what kind of things are possible with the current tech,
Mhm.
and then where on earth somehow the discussion about agentic AI and what it's able to do, which is this like, amazing home robot sort of thing that apparently is able to do everything very
Right.
simply, who's on the other side of the Grand Canyon. And I can't rationalize that story. I can't wrap my head around it that well. So I want to talk to you guys about it, of the few little experiences that I've had recently, that have been kind of leading up to this, and then trying to get an understanding of the statements out there right now about AI and what it can currently do are in like two different worlds. And I don't know
Mhm.
what's in between. I don't know what the bridge is in between these two pieces. So I really want to talk to you guys as well about where have you seen this going? Do you see it continuing all the way through, or do you think there's a gap somewhere? And we're going to get a little technical today. We'll get through a little bit of that.
Mhm.
But we're also getting into some like use cases, the realistic, real life use cases of AI and where it stands today.
Right. I think before we go too far in, we need to agree on some definitions because, at least for me,
Sure.
as we go through this conversation, because it is so murky, there are a
Yeah.
lot of people using agentic
Yeah.
in very liberal ways. Um, and Yeah, so for the sake of discussion and debate and hyperbole, we will, at least in my mind, what you were talking about, Alex, of the if this then and all of that, that to me is a workflow, an automated workflow that has been around for 15, 20 years through the marketing automation platforms, through some of the Zapier connections, like even the really old ones where you could, you know, upload your YouTube video into Facebook automatically so that you wouldn't have to, right? Um,
Right.
like that's been a thing for a really long time. It's been very manual to make sure that it works correctly and that it doesn't fail and that, with as the platforms change, the thing still works. Um, Has there been some cost savings with that for certain people who are very tech minded like that? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is that where most people are playing? Is that what most people believe agentic AI is? I don't believe so. I think what the perception of agentic AI is would be that it has that reasoning capability and it takes actions on your behalf. Like it knows enough of your data and enough of your processes to know that, okay, if this particular thing in the CRM is triggered, then send this, drip campaign of emails, send this SMS text, send, do this, that, and the other, and alert the sales guy. Like, okay, great. That is awesome because now you're talking, that's like 6 or 7 different communications. You don't have to do
Yeah.
those emails as a human anymore. You don't have, like that's all wonderful. That presupposes a lot of knowledge on the front end that, we've
Yeah.
talked about on other episodes where are you comfortable giving these systems, these platforms that much data, right? Um, and and yeah, is that at least clear? Would you guys change those kinds of definitions, or is that how you see them before we move on?
I think we're good, but I'm just going to recap a little bit. So,
Right.
and also I'm going to add to this. So we've got sort of the generative piece, which is you've got based on sort of natural language, we're creating um, text, right? And
Right.
visuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that piece. You have automated workflows, which to your point, Dave, these are sort of sequential steps that are repeated in a specific order over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again, oftentimes with if then, so they can become more complex. And then we have this agentic piece, which is sort of you have an almost an independent actor that's able to take an information, pursue a specific goal, but make decisions along the way, regardless of the specified workflow, and then
Yes.
learn based on feedback loops. So those sort of the three that we want to play around with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think your third definition is really good. It's
I
taking
totally
those.
ChatGPT'd it.
Oh,
Just side note.
well, the example I think in my mind is a lot of people talk about agents as like, oh, you can buy sports tickets and a plane ticket. I'm like, that's cool, except no, um,
Yeah.
because there's decisions to be made. So if I had a high schooler educated individual as an intern and I said, hey, I need to book a ticket from my city to New York City on this day, they could go do that. And they were like, oh, I got you a flight and the flight leaves at 8:50 a.m., which means you need to get to the airport a couple hours earlier, and the cost is going to be this. And your return flight will get you back around like 5 p.m. or something like that. And it'd be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
those are great times. That's great. A bot who would be more price conscious would say, hey, I got you on a 4 a.m. flight and you're going to come back at 11 p.m. And I'd be like, no. I don't want that. That sounds terrible. Or like, I got you a rental. You're gonna have to take an Uber for 2 hours outside of the city, but there it is, and it's super cheap. No, I want one at the airport. I'm willing to pay more in that situation, but I'm not willing to pay a luxury amount. I'm willing to pay somewhere in between amount. And a high schooler would have the reasoning to say, oh, booking a 4 a.m. flight or 5 a.m. flight seems a little weird. I should probably ask at least first. Or that maybe that's not right. Maybe I should look for this. Or, hey, where is that super cheap car actually located? And they Google map it and they're like, oh, it's super far and with rush hour traffic and all the rest, you're never gonna get there. Like there's all these other little added on pieces. And the
Mm-hmm.
car rental thing was maybe
Well,
a personal life example there. But
having just experienced the car rental situation with a friend of
yeah.
mine, I was looking at the prices, and um, he tends to be on the cheaper side of things. And I
Hmm.
said, screw it. The premium car is only $20 more. I will pay the $20 because
Yeah.
$5 a day for a nicer car is worth it to me when what we're talking about is a lot of driving to and from places.
Sure.
right? Because then
So
I
you
don't
had,
show up on my vacation and I get stuck in a, Volkswagen Golf with all of our luggage, with all of our, and we're just crunched. Like, nope, nope, not happening. That's not how I travel.
yeah, which there's a lot of context there. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of nuance there as well, which I think that, to Ruthy's point of her definitions, I think that really gets into the agent that people are talking about versus the agent that we've seen a lot today, which is more of those automated workflows, which would be go to this website, find this thing, select it, go through this purchase process, use the
Right.
saved credit card, purchase it, which that's a workflow. There's I think a good line there. Ruthie?
Some of the thoughts coming to mind as we talk through this, and I'm also thinking about Alex, your original question of sort of like what it can currently do and sort of what do we think it can do, or sort of where is it trending that it maybe isn't quite, but we see little bits and pieces of it is kind of how I see it. So first I want to just put a note that if you put a high schooler or intern on this, they might not have the full thought process.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
We might be
Yeah.
giving too much credit, but I think it's a really good analogy of like a workflow to me is more like an intern or
Right.
you're out you have your documentation, you go execute said documentation.
I'm
Sure.
Um,
glad you brought that up
you
because I
guys are
didn't want
talking
to
about oh
question the intelligence of high schoolers publicly. So
Depends on
thank
the
you
high
for
school.
bringing that one up, Ruthie.
I'm not I'm setting the bar low. Go ahead and jump. But then I think about like the sort of more agentic piece that we're talking more about an assistant or a
Right.
trained coworker, right? It's
Hmm.
it's you know that extra layer. And what I notice is a couple of things. First is one of the we talked about this a little bit, Alex, of this convergence idea of you've got y- you've got the natural language, so now you can talk to your computer, which I think we brought that up too as an idea of like now you can speak to the computers. That's pretty cool. That alone does
Hmm.
some changes the game a bit. You can speak to the computer in order to execute on the automated workflow. So that addition now all of a sudden makes the automated workflow a bit more powerful. Or you might be able to create more automated workflows than you could before simply because me, a non-technical user, can now create automated workflows I couldn't before because I didn't have the
Yep.
technical chops. So that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. And it's important to note that that alone is an upgrade than what we have before, but maybe it's not the dream yet. And so then I think about this agentic thing, and what I notice is if setting even work cases aside in my own personal use cases, um, when I'm using ChatGPT to find the latest recipe or figure out what I can make out of my kitchen or decide on paint colors, it's already doing that extra layer of asking me contextual questions. Maybe it doesn't presume to know all the time what the answer is before giving me the answer. And that I think is important. It's learning enough, or it looks like it's learning enough to be able to ask the follow-up questions related to the rental car thing, related to the airport. What is a convenient time to travel wouldn't shock me as a follow-up question that the current level of technology could do. So
Hmm.
that's where I go. I don't think we're that far away from the what we talked about as this agentic idea, and I suspect that it's already in practice in places um, where it can take information. It can say, okay, I think I know what I need to do. I can execute on it. I can ask for clarification if I need to before moving forward, and I can make a decision. Like I have seen a couple working examples of that. Um, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was in a, okay, go ahead, Alex.
No, no, taking a different direction. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was in a conversation with somebody that, coffee talks, like I keep Fridays open for those kinds of things, right? Um, and we were talking about sort of what are the stages of AI or what are you thinking of that for like, individuals and um I know this has come up in certain conversations around like job interviews to show like, hey, you are AI first. Like let's classify the potential new hire on AI knowledge or awareness or whatever else.
Mhm.
And for me, I think, Alex, as you bring up the if then stuff and the workflows, I have been surprised the sheer number of people that I've met over the last 15 years of being in business, the amount of people who don't know that that's a possibility, even though it's been around, even though it's been in a simpler form. Um, so on the one hand, it's kind of like, AI when we first started talking about it 3 years ago, where it was, hey, this is going to enable a whole number of people to get access to things that they currently don't have access to,
Mhm.
right? Like if you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, give me a personal workout plan because you can't afford a personal trainer, that's a fantastic step towards better health if you actually follow through and do that, right? Because you shouldn't be punished for not having enough money for a personal trainer, right? Um, so that part's cool. But then you have this middle level and the expert tier. And I think where we're talking about is that kind of expert tier where in small and medium-sized businesses, you might have more opportunity to play with these fully automated things. Or knowing that, okay, if I look at all the different data sources that I have, there's a possibility that I can connect them via APIs or, however it's decided that it's okay to do it. And then from there, I can do this, that, and this, right? I don't
Mhm.
know of a huge number of people who actually think that way. So the fact that we're actually like upskilling people to that
Yeah.
point is good. I'm glad we're having those conversations. But there is, as I kind of outlined it during the coffee talk, for me, it was like if you are at zero, the first thing that you should do is just pick an AI platform and get used to it. Right? Do
Mhm.
the free version. Once you're comfortable with free version, get the paid version, get comfortable with the paid features. Step two, deep research. Do deep research, figure out how to do that, how to leverage multiple tools simultaneously, or like pitting certain things against each other. That's kind of stage two. Stage three is that multiple sources, whether it's your documents or, your Google Looker Studio with your YouTube and your ads and your whatever else already in a dashboard to then make decisions off of that dashboard data, right? Those are all different use cases, but also varying levels of skill set with the AI, but then also varying levels of awareness of how to use the tools and what the possibilities are with the data stuff. So just something that came to mind.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to both your points about accessibility.
Hmm.
Like, there's definitely stuff that I am doing today that I could not do 2 years ago, which is enabled
Hmm.
largely to an LLM of some sort. Like,
Right.
it is absolutely true that's allowing me to kind of get to that next stage and allow me to be that kind of technical person. Or in some of the cases of what I've been doing, things that would have, with normal work schedule and meeting schedule, taken me probably a month are now taking me a couple of days.
Right.
Like that's a huge upgrade in troubleshooting, soundboarding, like somebody to like, chat against on this very, very deep technical topic and get advice on troubleshooting a technical thing.
Hmm.
That's tough. And especially like at my convenience, that's a huge difference. Like, yeah, maybe
Hmm.
I would have been able to pull some time with a particular developer and say, hey, can I grab lunch with you? Because I'm stuck. This, on the other hand, I just pull up a new browser tab and I'm asking questions and getting answers within a minute. Like that's a
Hmm.
fantastic accessibility boost that we're
Right.
getting out of it. The agentic kind of gap or gulf is also in part to kind of a recent experience I shared with you guys before the show about asking ChatGPT about how it came up with some ethical decisions. And I had a rather long text-based adventure thing that I had created with it and going back and forth. And there was a bunch of ethical decisions. And I was like, I started questioning it. I was like, I made a bunch of decisions during this process where it's like you can do this, this, or this, and it's like, which one do you choose? And it's like you do the next thing. You do this or this. Here's the situation. Does the next thing, right?
Slay
It's
the
kind of
village.
right, exactly, like a little narrative-based campaign, right? Kind of almost Dungeons and Dragons-esque, but not really. There's no probability kind of or odds being used.
No pizza
So I
rolls.
asked it. I was like, what is the odds that I would have chosen any of the four options that had been consistently given to me? And it started listing out different percentages. I was like, interesting.
That is interesting.
Which ones would you have chosen? And it started listing out its likely ones, which some of them matched and some of them didn't. I was like, interesting. How do you make your ethical decisions?
Hmm.
And it went through, which we've talked about in previous episodes, and you probably heard from other places, is how these systems actually work. And it's based off of, it's called the vectorization and embedding of text. But really, if you think about it, it's if I'm going to write a book and it's a, fiction story, I'm going to start it out. It was a dark and stormy, what do you guys think the next word is?
Night.
Night. How do you know that?
Common knowledge.
Because of
Hmm.
all the other books that start the exact same way. And that is basically, in short, how an LLM works. It looks at all the amount of information that it has, says what's the
Hmm.
most likely next phrase, and it basically picks that phrase. And it builds it out and it keeps on going. And different topics that are closer together are put together. So more likely we're going to talk about dark and stormy night versus dark and stormy, decade, century, room, whatever. And all those other words are basically farther away than the word night is. So it gets pushed in, and the word day is very far away because it doesn't make any sense at all in that context, right? So it's building out all these things, and it basically gets down to the point of it is looking at words, the relationship between them, based upon all the information it has, but it has no understanding of what the words mean.
Right.
It knows connection points,
It's math.
probability based, exactly connection points, where these words are more likely to be next to these words. And these words are more likely to be far away. So the far away ones we don't use, the ones that are close we do use, and it creates that. So it's giving you that generic kind of answer, best practices, and all the rest, because that's what it has. It's not coming up with a creative answer, a creative solution, because that would be one document on the thousands that it has, and the other thousands that are doing the best practices bit, right?
Hmm.
So that's the thing is like there is no comprehension there. And that's the gap that I'm seeing is we can come up with some. I'm also building a GPT for a landing page, prototype kind of tool. And it's an extremely iterative approach. Every time it kicks one out, something obviously wrong with it. So I have to go back and edit the GPT and say, no, we got another rule that we got to always use this. You always got to have a privacy policy at the end of our form. We always have to have these fields and all the rest. Keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's iterative, which is software development,
Hmm.
a very accessible software development, but it's software development. It's
Hmm.
not intelligent enough to look at it and say, here's what they're trying to go for. This is, I'm going to put up a creative solution. Here it is. And that's the gulf that I don't understand of how we're going to get past that. I don't know how we're going to get past that gap towards this future state when it's no longer documentation based. It's now action based, and there may not be a template that it can use. That's the gap that I'm seeing. That's the one that I don't know how we're gonna. There has to be a different technology or something else that gets kind of built in. But I'm lost, man. I'm lost on how on earth we're gonna get from here to there. Like the Sam Altman's quotes about AGI and AI scientists next year and stuff like that. I don't know. I guess I just don't have the technical background, the information or something, but I don't know how we're gonna get there.
Right.
And what I'm thinking about as you're describing this, you are actively hitting the borders of this problem right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're hitting it. And myself, perhaps other users, haven't hit the borders of this in the same way because when I'm using the tool, I go, oh, I'm trying to find this space, this thing. The thing's already out there. Like it exists. And so when I'm prompting and I'm sending out questions or trying to like play with things, not all the time, of course, but a lot of the times I'm getting back really valuable stuff because I'm tapping
Sure.
into the general knowledge that exists out there that makes what you described function. And so I go, oh, this is fantastic. This is helping and this is working
Hmm.
because the thing
Hmm.
exists. And I'm just playing off of that. So it perhaps is an illusion in many cases. And I think that's what you're pointing out of it's a very helpful tool. Um,
Right.
but it in itself is not yet take creating or pursuing goals as far as we can tell.
Yeah, creative connections. You can see also like, for instance, with kind of the interior decorating example of colors,
Hmm.
the questions that it might be asking. You can kind of think of it of all the like a kind of word map of all the words that are related to interior decorating and kind of the different directions you could go with it.
Right.
And it's trying to ask you questions because, wait, are we going in this direction, which takes me like further to the left? Are we going further down? Are we going further up? And we're asking a couple questions to start narrowing it in. And now we're going to go look at, this word cloud over here. Oh, you don't like that word cloud. We're going to shift to this little word cloud below it. You can kind of understand like where these questions are coming from. It's starting to push
Right.
you towards the different kind of like nexus points of saying, oh, you're not a big fan of classic, whatever style. You're kind of looking for this coastal thing. Oh, actually, you're not quite. You just like some of the colors of it, but you don't like the boat motif. So we're going to get away from that. A little bit less nautical, but we're going to keep some of the colors and the bright colors. And, you can kind of see where
That
it's starting to like,
up-down analogy is so helpful for me because you run into these situations where you're just like, you just missed the boat entire. Like, what even is this question? And
yeah,
to the way that you've sort of laid out, sort of a broad brush, here's how this works. Here's the sort of word pairings that it's looking for and it's using to inform.
right.
Hmm.
That's where it gets stuck.
And
Or
oh, go
yes.
ahead. Oh, it's just it also it the other interesting thing about it is it tokenizes your entire conversation and it's all of its responses so far. So its conversation is constantly being guided. And you can sometimes see
Hmm.
that with really, really long chats or conversations with any kind of AI tool right now. It gets stuck. And it's sometimes really hard for it to say, like, no, forget this. We're not going in that direction. We've already talked about that. We're going in this direction. And it's like it brings it up again. And it's like, my gosh, how did we not get this, moved forward yet? And that's the thing
Right.
is it's taking this entire conversation into account and then basically getting stuck in this particular part of like the word cloud map, basically. And it takes a long time to get it to remember to say, no, break those connections. We want to move it in this direction. And sometimes it gets really frustrating with some of these AI tools, but the more you can kind of like see of like, oh, you took a wrong turn and you're refusing to let go of it. I understand. Like,
Well, but
can be
that's
really
also,
frustrating.
I mean, you talk about creative connections, creativity in and of itself, or one definition of creativity that I've seen is making unique connections between two unlike but similar things.
Yeah.
So if you have a model that is purely based off of probability, the creative solution would be the least probable solution.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so it takes somebody to go, you know what? I do want mauve and orange for this living room.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't personally do that, but more power to you and your, red plastic glasses. Um,
Go.
you know exactly the type of person I'm talking about. Um, and it takes all types, and that's the wonderful thing about creativity, right? Because my version of creativity is in a certain lane, and it's different than yours, and it's different than Ruthi's, and but it's all collaborative and awesome. Um,
Yeah.
where the problem that I think is, or what my interpretation of where some of the problems are, right, is that it is promised as a general purpose, technology, where we are trying to apply it generally, and sometimes it's working, right? Like
Yeah.
to your point, Ruthie, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Like when I ask it questions where I'm like, just give me the best practices in this field that I'm not an expert in, and I just want to be like kind of okay with my thought process in, arguing with my boss about paying me more, right? Like how do I approach that, right? Um, those kinds of things are it's wonderful for because then it's okay, it is kind of crowdsourcing general knowledge and expert knowledge and and giving me a good thing to think about and work through. If I'm trying to solve for how to make a less deadly chemotherapy thing, I don't need it to answer the HR problem, right? I need it to know about protein structures and radiation and whatever else goes into chemo. I don't know why I chose that because I'm totally not skilled and versed in any of that. But like um you want that vertical thing. And what was it, like a year ago, year and a half ago, it seemed like a lot of the news in the industry and a lot of the conversations the three of us were having was, okay, you have the general text, but then there are going to be these vertical AIs. Like you have your finance AI and your, banking AI and your medicine and manufacturing AI. And great, yes, and that, right? But it takes specialists to know where those guardrails are and where those limits are, right? The fact that you have thought a lot about ethics and morality in your life allows you to um, question these things in a better way than a lot of Americans.
Ruthi, do you want
Thoughts,
to add?
comments?
I'm trying to think of, um, I'm trying to recall a podcast or something I was listening to. And one of the comments that the host had made was that in various, academic field experts that he had spoken to, um, one of the values they saw wasn't so much, I'm thinking about your chemo example. One of the values they saw in these tools wasn't so much that it was an expert in their field, but they were able to use it to ask better questions of themselves to be able to solve.
Right,
And so I think this is a really cool exploration of sort of what the limits are that we're seeing currently or where it's not as good and what it is good at. And I've noticed this as well in interacting and my preference is for ChatGPT. I use Claude occasionally, and Google. When it's embedded. You guys, I think, use Gemini more than I do. But one of the biggest value adds I see is having it improve some of the ways that I'm thinking and pushing back. Or have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? And
right.
I
Completeness.
don't know that we've touched on that one as much as well, where it's not maybe it's tapping into the best practices thing. Maybe it's because humans are good at asking questions, and so it's sort of picked up on that. I'm not entirely sure, but that's a different type of value that I've seen. That's not the generative. It's not an automated workflow. It's not the sort of pursuing goals and sort of making decisions. It's the dialogue portion, which is a surprise. I didn't expect that when ChatGPT was first announced, that would be one of the main value adds for me.
Yeah, I have to say
Yeah.
I'm in total agreement with you on that. And the being able to use it as kind of a strategic advisor or like just that idea sounding board
Hmm.
saves you guys from getting so many late night texts. Like you don't even know how much that these things have saved you. So, but it's like, cool, I don't have to annoy my friends anymore with these one-off ideas. Or, here's a weird thought. Um, because I can either choose to explore them on my own or just, leave them be. Because um I'll throw this out there and you guys can choose whether or not we talk about it today. But I know for me, one of the things that's sort of counterintuitive to all of this too is, I mean, we talk about using these things for productivity and, we want to be able to do this outcome based thing, like Alex, to your point of like building the landing page thing. And but then having to troubleshoot it so much because at that point, is it faster to just have built it yourself in the platforms that exist today? You know,
Yeah.
so there's that portion of it, but because I have access to the sounding board all the time or the deep research things all the time, I can go chase after whatever wackadoo idea I have. And then I actually have to put up guardrails for myself to prevent intellectual burnout because I'm able to chase whatever ideas I want or come up with whatever creative things I want. Or, like I have to actively go, you know what, shut up, go for a walk and listen to some music. Like get away from all of this because you're about to spiral. Yeah. Like,
I feel it
yeah.
so hard, man. There's too many times where I'm like, okay, like, here's a situation I'm struggling with at work. Like, I'm trying to pull this
Um,
together, this kind of a thing and this kind of thing. And it gives me like, okay, here it is. Like, here's the code you need to implement, and here's the next 15 steps that you need to do. And oh, you want to, do a book launch or something. Here's like the 15 things that you need to do. And underneath of those, there's like 5 tasks each and all the rest. I'm like, great.
yeah.
I need to go to bed now. Because it's like that's I would love if it would just then do it. But
Hmm.
it is still at the end of the day, I've now been given a ton of direction that I didn't have to slowly kind of figure out for myself step by step, kind of going through the world's natural workflow of,
Hmm.
decision trees. As you come across this problem and this problem, you learn this, you keep going through this, like, that's life.
Right.
It instead gave me like this gigantic rubric, which will take me, I don't know, 15 hours to complete. And
But
that's
the
a
cool
lot of work.
part is, okay, he, this is not answering Dave's question, but addressing Alex's situation. You learned that faster. I mean,
Super fast.
super
Yeah.
fast. I mean, you might
Oh
not have
yeah.
gone down that route anyway.
Yeah,
Maybe you're exploring different roads because it's faster.
sure.
So that's taking up additional time. But the key piece is now you've learned, okay, this is what it would take for me to get there. Do I want to
Right.
take that or do I want to just say, no, that's good?
Yep.
Or some of the similar use cases that I've had, I'll start down a project where I kind of think I kind of know what I need, but I'm not entirely sure. And it's like, all right, like what would I need to if I wanted to pursue this, or like what does exactly this thing do that is it valuable to me? Is it not? We'll break it down. And then I go, oh, okay, I don't need that thing. Like I'm gonna move on to the next. Or yes, I do, but I actually need this subset that I didn't even realize I needed. So there is that value add too of being able to process ideas and what it would take to execute on those ideas faster. And then what's frustrating is you're like, okay, can we just do it now? I don't actually want to go through the steps. Let's just have it done.
Hmm.
I don't worry.
I do
It's
not have the
interesting.
burnout yet, by the way.
Okay. Well, you have enough
And
going on
part
in
of
your
that
life
is
that we don't have to talk
I
about,
don't have
but
enough
like,
time to spend so much time with these things. So it's just like I don't have the capacity to reach the burnout point. I'm just like, oh, good, we move, go.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So I was talking to a coworker the other day, and granted, this is one of those like totally anecdotal, so just take it as a good story kind of thing. Like, again, just pitching an interesting idea to think about for later. So she was talking to a doctor friend, and they were saying that one of the nasty side effects of all the e-bikes and the e-scooters and whatever else is that kids are getting more ankle injuries because they haven't developed their calf and small sort of stabilizer muscles enough. So you're seeing these like, Achilles sprains in younger and younger people. Um, so total second order effect that you couldn't or wouldn't consider, right? That is now like a thing. Um, I wonder with how quickly people can get to an answer, but then to your point, Alex, be like, ugh, work. Like, how quickly does that start impacting us at work? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, yeah,
Hopefully quickly. And here's my argument for
Yeah.
why. Because it it cuts out a lot of it allows for the I've got an idea, let's run with it, but you can learn faster.
right,
This turns out to be not a good idea, or it turns out to be a much bigger lift than I anticipated.
right,
Yeah, I agree to the same point of like, I've talked about some of the projects that I've been working on, but the amount of effort that it would take to resolve them completely, I can learn about very quickly about ahead of time and start to understand like, oh, this is going to take a lot. Like I had this idea, this concept, and it gives me like, if you're at like a random small business idea or something like that, cool,
right,
you got an idea. But then the tough part is not the idea and the concept, it's always the workload. It's a question of like how much effort is this going to take?
right.
Okay, like to be able to do those explorations, those sounding boards, I mean, advice, troubleshooting, you name it, absolutely amazing. I mean, no doubt on that one.
Hmm.
I wanted to get back to a side topic we had because we talked about creativity a little bit, and
Hmm.
there are methods and actually ways to make ChatGPT and other ones become more creative. So I wanted to
Hmm.
mention that quickly about how there's kind of two main methods. One is continually asking it so that your conversation starts to go in that direction. So give me a more creative example, give me a different example, something more unique, and it'll start to actually broaden itself out. So there's a whole K count thing and all the rest, but it's basically talking about what words are close to the cluster that it's at. Think of that like word map kind of thing.
Right.
Um, it temperature wise, which is the technical phrase, basically keeps it very, very tight circle around which ones that it's going to basically include. And you can, even with any of them, you can ask about like what temperature you're currently using and which one should I use to make a more creative solution.
Right.
And you can manually switch it for that conversation, basically to a different number. So if you go to like 1.1, you're going to get some really creative stuff. Um, it's basically out of one, so it's just zero point 0.7, zero point 0.6, zero point 0.8, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And it usually sits around like a zero point 0.9 or something like that. But once you get just a couple points above, now you got crazy stuff. So let me give you two examples of how this works out. Because I've ever told you about my Darth Vader ducks. Problem.
Publicly, you probably shouldn't because that mouse has teeth with floors of lawyers.
Well, blame ChatGPT for that.
This falls into parody territory. I think you're good.
It definitely is parody. So two situations that kind of show both methods. One was basically again doing this kind of text adventure thing. It was a Star Wars based one, so I did a bunch of like random like Jedi's beating the Sith whatever kind of thing. It was like great, that's fun. Give me your more unique story, and it kind of gave me a little bit more. And I was like no 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 no, give me more unique story, and it kind of gives me another scenario, another narrative. And eventually we got to this point where it said there was a disturbance in the force at the zoo because there's a bunch of ducks that are parading around with little glow sticks as lightsabers, and they even have little black cloaks. And they are currently worshiping a duck that has possibly has Jedi powers, and you have to go investigate it. And I was like, that is hilarious. Yes, all about it. So eventually, my trope of little characters included, I can't remember what I called them. It was like the dark fuzziness or something like that. And I would send them on missions, and it would be hilarious because like you get these like super critical like ethical decisions, and I was like, no, 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 throw the ducks at it, and then you get a bunch of fuzzy ducks, waddling around with their little like glow stick lightsabers. It's adorable. But what that was an extremely long tokenized conversation that I was basically taking all of those elements, saying, okay, where are you kind of in this world? You're
Right.
asking for more and more unique, so I'm doing little shifts because you basically have narrowed, think of like a funnel. I'm not at the top of the funnel. I'm like darn near the bottom of the funnel. And it's just
Right.
going little bits, little shifts around in the bottom of that funnel, very, very, very small kind of circumference that it's working within.
Hmm.
Pause on that one. New scenario. I said, okay, that was fun. Weeks have passed. It's like, hey, let's do another Star Wars role play. Like, give me something unique. And I started messing with the temperature on it just to try to get it to go more unique because it was really struggling to give me something like that. And I was like, man, that was so fun. Like, why can't we just pick that back up again? And I switched the temperature just a little bit above to make it a little bit more creative. And I got Jedi witches who are made of glass, and you land on a planet where the trees change the time based upon the words you use. And I was like, whoa, 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 we have gone too far here. Like, rein it back. And it couldn't. It just simply couldn't. It was going from all the way out to, as you were saying, wackadoo, all the way to like something much, much, much more normal in between. And
You
it
have to be
just,
very careful with your enunciation on glass witches. This
which is made of glass. How about that? Oh my gosh. It was so bizarre. But that's a piece of it as well as where you have this, and Ruthie, you were saying before about how I was learning, where it's kind of like focusing in. And if you have this conversation that allows it to focus in more and then allow it to be a little bit more creative and kind of push it in different directions, you can usually get like a little bit more of a controlled result. But if you start out from all the way back at the front, I mean, it goes between, what to do on a Saturday and go have a picnic at a park. And I was like, more creative. Okay, have a picnic on the sun. I was like, okay, somewhere in between. Like,
Seems to be a bit hot.
exactly. It's like, let's try
It's
something.
like the temperature control
It is.
on faucets, you know? There's
Oh, there
like
you
this
go.
really, and this is a problem, right? You either have too cold or too hot, and there is the narrowest little band in which you actually want it to be. And it's exceedingly frustrating. We haven't even solved this faucet problem.
Right.
It's
Yeah, and then you get the one friend that has nerve damage and they don't feel temperature in their hands and they use it before you do and forget to shut it off, and then, you walk around with a bandage for a week. You know,
sounds like a personal problem.
well, not really, but
Oh my goodness. This is
well, let me
such a
say
cool
not anymore.
example. And also, I would love to see some of the prompts you use for these role playing in Pathways because I'm like ready to go. I'm like, sign me up. This sounds like really fun.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Okay. Well, that was an interesting conversation. I had no idea where we would end up. I did not expect Darth Duck, um, but I'm happy we got there. So yeah, shout out for Pathways. Check that out. And thank you for making it to this far into the episode. Like, subscribe, share. It helps us out. Anybody else who will enjoy these kinds of conversations or just an exploration of what's even possible with these things, right? Um, yeah, let us know. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time in the next episode of Enterprising Minds. Take care.
Thanks.